Welcome back to the Foundry by Forge College. So, in our previous explainer, Key Features and User Benefits, we explored the flashy, exciting perks of smart wallets. All the shiny stuff users absolutely love. But today, today we are throwing on our hard hats. As part of our wallets, account abstraction, and key management track, specifically within the Introduction to Smart Wallets and Foundations of Smart Wallets modules, we are diving deep into the architect's blueprint. We've got to figure out how all this wizardry actually works, without everything catching on fire. Because let's be honest, we've seen that shiny exterior, right? Session keys, social recovery, gasless transactions, they look like absolute magic from the outside. But here's the catch. If you try to just slap a social recovery sticker on a decentralized app, you're going to have a spectacularly bad time. So we need to crack open the engine and find out exactly where these features are hardwired into the foundation. Okay, here is our architectural schematic for today's explainer. We're going to move from features to structure, break down the 3 wallet layers, map those features in action, look at some real-world integration scenarios, and wrap up with a rock-solid smart wallet design checklist. Let's get to it. First up on the schematic, going from features to structure. Look, knowing a feature list is a fantastic starting point. It's kind of like knowing your car has heated seats and an automatic transmission. Cool, right? But mapping those capabilities to the underlying structure, that is what truly empowers you as a builder. We have the user features, that frictionless, shiny exterior, and then we have the structural components, the engine wiring, the logic contracts, the relayers. Our goal right now is to draw a solid, undeniable line from the user's click all the way down to the actual cryptographic execution. All right, moving on to part 2, the mental model of the 3 wallet layers. To make this whole thing super easy to visualize, imagine a smart wallet as a highly secure office building with 3 distinct layers. First up is the identity layer. Think of this simply as your physical ring of room keys. It's your key store, holding your root secrets and temporary session keys. If you want to open a door in this building, well, you need the right key to prove you aren't just some random person walking in off the street. Next up is the policy layer. Now, this is essentially the building's security desk. It checks who can enter which rooms and under what specific conditions. This is where your smart contracts, control logic, and auxiliary modules live. You might have a perfectly valid key from the identity layer, but the policy layer is that strict guard saying, yes, your key is valid, but you're only allowed to spend $50 today, and you can only interact with this specific gaming contract. It rigidly enforces the rules, the limits, and the recovery conditions. And finally, we have the transport layer. You can think of this as your highly capable white glove concierge. Instead of you marching down to the basement to execute a transaction yourself, the concierge carries your intents out to the network. And honestly, the absolute best part, the concierge uses a paymaster to spot you for gas fees, so you literally never have to scramble for spare ETH just to leave a tip or mint an item.
Okay, part 3. Let's see these high-level features mapped out in action.
Let's look at the actual wiring here. Notice how session keys rely heavily on the identity layer to generate the key, but they lean on the policy layer to actually enforce their expiration. Social recovery, that completely bypasses the concierge and talks directly to auxiliary modules to reset your identity. And gas abstraction lives entirely in the transport layer. So whenever you're evaluating a brand new feature, instantly ask yourself, am I modifying identity, enforcing a policy, or transporting an intent? Now, structural mapping is also about execution trade-offs. This is absolutely crucial. On-chain logic gives you perfect immutable auditability, but, and it's a big but, you pay for it heavily in gas and network latency. Off-chain enforcement, on the other hand, gives you blazing fast speed and buttery smooth UX. But that speed definitely isn't free. It demands ironclad replay protection. You have to make sure a hacker can't just take an off-chain signature for a $5 tip and submit it 1,000 times to completely drain your account. That would be a nightmare. Moving along to part 4, real-world integration scenarios. Let's actually put this to the test with a decentralized social media platform where users tip creators a few cents for every like. If their main wallet asks for a signature every single time they click like, they are going to abandon your app immediately, for sure. Instead, we use a session flow. Step 1, derive a scoped session key. Step 2, the app silently creates an off-chain intent. Step 3, our concierge relayer submits it. And step 4, the on-chain security desk validates the signature and ensures the user hasn't exceeded their tipping limit. It's totally invisible to the user, but strictly enforced by the architecture. But wait, What if a user completely loses the device holding their keys? We obviously can't leave them stranded. A secure recovery flow wisely mixes off-chain signature collection with an on-chain time lock. So, step 1 sees trusted guardians signing a recovery message off-chain. Step 2 has the control logic checking if the required threshold of guardians is actually met. Step 3 triggers a mandatory time lock delay, which is incredibly vital to allow the original owner time for dispute resolution if they're being maliciously attacked. And finally, step 4 sees the recoveries safely finalized on-chain. Finally, part 5. Let's run through the Master Smart Wallet Design Checklist. You really need to run through this 5-point punch list whenever you add a feature. First, identify exactly where it's enforced. Is it on or off-chain? Second, map the required components to our 3 layers: identity, policy, or transport. Third, evaluate your attack surface. Fourth, ensure your user interface clearly reflects those policy decisions. And fifth, always plan your recovery and dispute paths. A system without a dispute path is just an absolute disaster waiting to happen. I want to zoom in on point 3 for a second. Expanding capabilities literally means expanding your attack surface. If you generate a dozen temporary session keys to make an app faster, or you use external relayers, you're creating brand new places for compromise. More keys floating around means you absolutely must implement strict, unyielding time locks and transaction limits at the policy layer. You've got to contain any potential blast radius. We have successfully mapped out the internal schematics today. We've moved from the flashy exterior features straight down to the foundational logic. So I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Now that you actually understand the engine, and now that you know exactly how identity, policy, and transport weave together, what are you going to build? What massive user friction are you going to completely eliminate by wiring your architecture the right way? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. The blueprints are entirely yours to command now. To master these architectures and explore way more Web3 topics, please head over and visit the website forge.college. Keep building and keep innovating.